Betty knows a lot of their secrets.
Only on Oxygen.
Are people fearful of the Murdochs?
Yeah.
Alec Murdaugh, Death, Deception, Power. Only on Oxygen True Crime.
Breaking news in Columbia, Missouri. Judgment day for Lynn Lee Renick, accused of murdering her world-famous snake breeder husband, Ben, as the jury delivers their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of murder in the second degree.
In Hennepin County, Minnesota, former officer Kim Potter is accused of manslaughter after mistakenly using her gun instead of her taser and shooting and killing Dante Wright in his car. Today, emotional testimony from a passenger in that car.
I was the only one who had everybody there. I was trying to help him.
On the docket tonight in Orange County, Florida, the Suitcase murder trial. Sarah Boone accused of locking her boyfriend in a suitcase and taunting him while he died. We have a preview.
I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase, so I don't know what happened.
In tonight's unsolved case file, in Rose Township, Michigan, Allie Brugger was going for a run when she was shot and killed 5 years ago. Now, there is new information, and Allie's mom joins us live to ask for your help in catching this killer.
All you have to do is make a phone call. It's an anonymous tip.
Dash cam and body cam video of the shooting of Dante Wright shows exactly how police handled the situation. We take a closer look with our own law enforcement experts.
I just shot him. Yes!
And we take a look at the aftermath of the shooting when Dante Wright's car crashes and police respond. We break it down during crime time.
Obviously, he's got shot somewhere between there and here.
Plus, many thought it would be a quick verdict in the Jussie Smollett case, but it didn't turn out that way. Tonight's 13th juror question: what do you think of the jury in the Smollett case? Go to our Facebook pages and tell us what you think. Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. What happened? What happened in Missouri? Yeah, the jury said the word guilty, but this was nothing but a huge win today for Lynn Lee Renick. Unbelievable. Let me show you, I'll show you the verdict, and then in Missouri, the jury gets to decide what the punishment for that crime will be as well, with their recommendation to the judge. So let's listen to the verdict, listen to the recommendation, and then you'll listen to me for a little bit.
Okay, this is verdict. As to count one, we, the jury, find the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of murder in the second degree as submitted in instruction number 9, and that's signed by your foreperson. And verdict as to count two, we, the jury, find the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of armed criminal action as submitted in number 16, and that's signed by your foreperson. Are these your verdicts, and so say each of you? Okay, either side want this jury polled? Okay, Senator, please rise. Verdict as to count one, we, the jury, having found the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of murder in the second degree, assess and declare punishment for murder in the second degree at 13 years. Verdict as to count two, we, the jury, having found the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of armed criminal action, assess and declare the punishment for armed criminal action at 3 years. And that's signed by your foreperson. Is this your verdict, and so say each of you? Are these your verdicts, and so say each of you? Okay.
That's all it is. That's all it is. It's a slap on the wrist for taking the life of your husband, the father of your child. Unbelievable development in this case. Unexpected. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I've been shocked before. Absolutely. Robert Durst's first trial down in Texas, right? That other thing that happened down in Orange County, Florida. This is right up there with them, folks. The word guilty was said, but this is a huge win. Think about this case for just 1 second. And this is what I would ask the jurors if they come on the show, if they ever want to come on and talk about it. And I'm not angry. I'm not mad. They did their jobs. They deliberated for quite some time for such a short case. But if you took Lindley Renick out of this situation, would Ben Renick be alive? Think about it for a second. Of course he would be. Of course he would be. She surrounded herself with the Humphrey guy and the woman from the spa. Yeah, they were not great witnesses, not great people. But they're all part of her world. She brought them into her world. If you take her out of the equation, Ben Renick is alive. He's alive. And they found basically this is a case where, no, there was no premeditation, no deliberation time before the murder took place. Unbelievable. That's all it is. Let me bring in CourtTV Senior Director of Courtroom Coverage, Grace Wong, who's been in the courtroom throughout this trial, joining us by phone tonight from Columbia, Missouri. Grace, thanks so much for joining us today. Am I getting this wrong? She was facing the rest of her life in prison for the first-degree murder, and now she'll potentially get out how quickly?
She will probably do about 11 and a half years before she gets out. In Missouri, having been convicted of second-degree murder makes her eligible for an 85% term. She serves 85% of her sentence and then is able to be released. So it is definitely a blow for the family of Ben Renick, who is Sam and a very close family friend, Babette Tucker. She was the only person that spoke to us after the verdict, and she was in tears. It was very clear that this was a disappointment. And it didn't feel right when it was second degree, but they were willing to accept a guilty verdict on murder. But certainly with such a lenient sentence from the jury, it is a bitter pill that they're going to have to swallow, especially for Sam having suffered the sting of betrayal in so many ways. First, losing his brother. Secondly, keeping this a secret for years. And then during that time, she's throwing police off the scent of Michael Humphrey and pointing the finger at her brother-in-law. One slap in the face after another. So this, and then after Ben's death, selling the family farm and while he was still living on it, and not giving him a chance to have any kind of relationship with his niece, and not really giving him a chance to mourn his brother before pushing him off the property. So all of that has been the burden that he's had since Ben's death. And this is certainly very, very disappointing for him.
No, it's awful. It is absolutely awful. They said the words guilty, but it is a very hollow guilty in the way this jury handed all of this down tonight. Grace, let me ask you about that jury. What did you see about this jury when the verdict was delivered, and anything from them, and any other reactions tonight?
Well, certainly this jury was attentive, even though I didn't observe any of them taking notes of any kind. And they were an older group of jurors. A lot of them looked very much like Lindley's parents, about that age group. And I think what really seemed to resonate with them was the appeal by her sister that her children, Maddie and Emilia, do love her and do look forward to spending time with her during the weekends. Her sister is their guardian, and she will remain their guardian while she goes to prison. And she says that they do love their mother. And I think that the idea that these children have lost so much by losing one parent and are about to lose another, obviously that was an argument, that was an appeal that did resonate with these jurors. And then I think secondly, the idea that this is an argument raised by the defense attorney, Catherine Berger, is that those other co-conspirators, you had Michael Humphrey, Ashley Shaw, and Rachel Hunt. All three of them were very active in the plot to kill Ben. Michael Humphrey provided the gun. He, of course, was convicted of first-degree murder, and because he made a deal with the state, his sentence has been knocked down. And then the other two co-conspirators, Rachel Hunt and Ashley Shaw, got sweet deals. They will not serve a second in prison. And Ashley Shaw was admittedly a very active co-conspirator. She helped Lynn Lee make an attempt on her husband's life previously. When the poisoning didn't work, they had conspired initially to poison Ben, and Ashley had researched on the web how much of a drug would kill a person. That's the extent of her participation, which is I think very extensive if you look at it. I mean, she actively researched what it would take to kill somebody with drugs. She acquired the drugs. If you believe her, she acquired the drugs for Lynn Lee, and Lynn Lee ground it up and put it in one of his drinks, and he became violently ill. So that is the extent of her participation. And then she helped her clean up after the murder. She showered her so there would be no gunshot residue. She cleaned up, and she covered up for her, and then sent emails and texts to Ben when he was supposedly dead by then, so that it would look like she had an alibi. So this is a very active co-conspirator, and she will not serve a day in prison. So I
understand that, but at the end of the day, though, again, if you take Lynn Lee Renick out of the mix of all these people, is Ben Renick alive tonight?
Well, probably.
Yeah, of course he is. Of course he is. And the jury, This is like looking at a case and saying, well, I just hired the hitman, I didn't actually do it, right? And if the jury's thinking that somehow Humphrey fired the weapon and that makes him more culpable and she's less culpable, that's to me, that's absurd. It comes back to a very basic concept in the law. The old but-for, Grace Wong. The but-for test, but for Lynn Lee, Ben is alive tonight. You take any one of those other people out of the equation, and guess what? Ben could still be dead. He could still be dead. You take any one of the other people out of the equation, she would have figured out another way. And that's the part that is so mind-boggling tonight. But we are where we are. Anything else we should know about in terms of what happened at the courthouse today, Grace?
Well, I think her initial reaction was certainly very dramatic in the courtroom, which we weren't able to see from our cameras because the judge had left the bench. But after the verdict was rendered, she was crying and sobbing so loudly you could hear her wailing throughout the courtroom. So she did initially, I think, even though she is getting a relatively lenient sentence, was very disappointed with the verdict, and I think her family was. But I think they're also relieved that she's not serving life in prison and that she will have a life after she serves her sentence. She's only 33 years old. She will serve 11 and a half years. She gets out, she'll be in her early 40s, so she will have a life when she gets out of prison.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's young. That's young for a convicted murderer to be walking around. Grace Wong at the courthouse, thank you so much. Let's get some reaction from our think tank tonight. Joining us in the Bronx, New York, criminal defense attorney Renée Hill. In Houston, Texas, criminal defense attorney Carmen Rowe. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, law professor at Emory University and Georgia Innocence Project board member Molly Parmer. Great to see everyone tonight. Let me just show you one more thing in case anyone's like, Lynn Lee is disappointed with the verdict and Lynn Lee's really innocent and she didn't want him dead. Take a look at what she mouthed to the after the sentence here to the jury. She's mouthing some words here. Do we see it? Wait for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are 100% innocent, Renée Hill, you're not saying thank you to 12 strangers who just called you a murderer. Come on. She's saying thank you for, oh my goodness, looking the other way and you know, slapping my wrist.
That's not true, Vinny. She knows that this jury took their time in their deliberations, and then they had to decide her fate. And they came back and they gave her a sentence that they believed was suitable for her participation in this crime. So she was saying thank you to them.
What was
for
her
their
participation in the crime, Renee?
in
What
this
was her
case
participation
and what
in
they
the crime?
sentenced her to.
Come
well,
on.
You know what? The jurors absolutely found that she wasn't the shooter, or at least they couldn't be satisfied with themselves to say that she was the actual shooter, or they would have convicted her of the murder in the first degree.
Why were her and
So
Michael?
they weren't
Why
sure.
did she bring Michael Humphrey, the ex-con, ex-lover, to the meeting? Carmen Rowe, come on. Why is she bringing the ex-con, ex-lover on the day that she is supposedly going to tell Ben that I'm leaving you? Oh yeah, I sent you the nude picture in the morning, but now that was to butter you up. But now I'm going to tell you that I'm leaving you, but I had to bring my ex-con, ex-lover with me.
Vinny, the whole thing's crazy. I'll tell you, I watched this trial and I was like, crocodile tears, nobody's buying this. I was as surprised as you were when the verdict came out that they didn't take her on the top count, which basically was one of cool reflection murder rather than the intentional killing of another person. So they found her guilty of intentionally killing her husband, but then they come back with this small sentence. So, you know, young, blonde, cute girls on trial. I mean, there's a benefit there. And these jurors clearly bought into what I perceive to be crocodile tears and this narrative that she put out there that she was a victim.
Unbelievable. By the way, she'll be out early 40s. Guys, if you're on the dating apps, take a look at her face now so you remember it a decade from now, and make sure you go to the left, not to the right. Molly, your reaction tonight?
You know, Vinny, I have kind of mixed feelings here because, like Carmen's pointed out, you know, I wonder how much of this can be attributed to how she looks. And if somebody didn't look like her, would the jury have that empathy and that mercy? And, you know, I want juries to have empathy and mercy. And I like the idea of juries deliberating over a sentence. We don't have that in my state. Murder, we don't even have degrees. If you're convicted of murder or felony murder, malice murder, it's life, no question. And so I like this idea.
Do you like the idea of murderers getting out in their early 40s?
I like the idea of rehabilitation and a system that's not just focused on punitive punishment with no hope for like her children. However, Vinny, if you want to be so upset about this slap on the wrist that you keep doing, you need to apportion some of your vitriol to the prosecutor that let Ashley Shaw walk. That's a slap on the wrist too, and that's prosecutorial discretion. So make sure you save some of your anger for the state too, Vinny.
No, I'm not, because you take the spa ladies out of the equation. Ben Renick's still dead. You take Michael Humphrey out of the equation. He's still dead. She was going to figure out a way to kill him. She tried to kill him first with the poison. It wasn't the first attempt. It was the second attempt. All right, let's take a listen. Let's take a listen to a little reaction from a family friend who was with the defense team afterwards.
This all in, and then we're going to decide what to do next, but we're going to need a couple of days before we can say any comments about the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was actually the defense team. I thought it was someone associated with them. Okay, so this is a victory, right? In the defense world, this is an absolute victory. Correct? Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
I want people to understand that, because they're going to say, oh, she was found guilty. Yeah, she was found guilty, but she murdered her husband, and she'll be out in her early 40s. Early 40s were some good years, some really good years. I mean, this is scary. Now, here's the other question. Renee Hill, should she really be, when she gets out in 10 years, be raising the child whose father she murdered? Should she be having contact with the child of the father she murdered? Should she be coming to visit? I know she loves her mother. Children love their parents unconditionally. But really? Should that? I mean, she's a convicted murderer.
You know what? In instances like this, that's where the family court will be involved. It's going to depend on the age of the children once she comes home, whether or not there needs to be some supervised visitation, or whether they are old enough at that time to determine what kind of contact they want to have with her.
How about a restraining order instead of the supervised visitation?
Vinny, at the end of the day, she is still a parent to the child or those children. And if they want to see their mother and are old enough to make that decision, they should be able to do so. And if they aren't old enough at that time, then the family court is going to step in and they're going to determine whether or not she's entitled to supervised visits or not. She's not.
She's
her
getting out
custody
so
rights
quick.
are not being taken away
I don't think the
from
child's
her.
going to be an adult. I think the child's still going to be a minor when she gets out. This is unreal. This is unreal. Unbelievable developments tonight in this case. All right. We've got our think tank. They're with us all night long. When we come back, the other big case that we are covering, this one taking place in Minneapolis. Same courthouse, same courtroom as Derek Chauvin. It's a shooting death that happened in the middle of that trial. Kim Potter is the defendant. We'll tell you exactly what happened today, including some excruciatingly emotional testimony from the girlfriend of Dante Wright, the young man who was shot and killed. She was in the car with him. Difficult day for her, but we'll show you some of that testimony.
And then you said you didn't remember much of the scuffling. What do you remember happening next?
I just remember hearing just the boom, the bang of the gun, and then I remember just looking up and seeing another white car just coming directly towards us. I remember lifting up my head real quick and just boom, and I can't tell if it was before or after, but I just remember trying to just get him up. I was the only one who, out of everybody there, who was trying to help him. And I was trying to push on his chest.
That was the testimony of the girlfriend of Dante Wright, who was in the car with him when he was shot by Kim Potter. And then that car ended up getting into an accident with another car. Extremely traumatic, difficult testimony for her today. CourtTV legal correspondent Julie Renée is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, was in the courtroom today and has more for us tonight.
Vinny, prosecutors spent day 2 of Minnesota versus Kimberly Potter showing this jury some dramatic body camera footage of the aftermath of Dante Wright's shooting death, and they coupled that with testimony from people who were also injured that day. One of those being Dante Wright's girlfriend, Elena Albrecht Payton, someone who was sitting in the passenger seat when that traffic stop turned fatal. She really captivated this jury through tears. She told them about what she saw that day. She identified photos that were taken of her where she has a bloody face and ear, something she sustained in the car crash that followed, a horrific experience that she says she keeps replaying in her head. Now, her testimony, it really even caused this jury to stop what they were doing. One man, he put down his pen, he put his hands in his lap and leaned in while she was describing not only what happened, which she said happened in an instant after the bang from Potter's gun into the vehicle where she was sitting, but she said all of a sudden they were colliding with another car, and that's how she sustained those injuries. She also testified about the words that she said to Dante Wright, where she screamed his name and asked him to say something. I noticed one of the women who was on the jury putting that down, writing down those words that she was saying. And that same particular juror was one of the most expressive that I saw on this panel. She had a furrowed brow when she looked at some of those images and seemed shocked to see the aftermath of this, Dante Wright's body being pulled out of the vehicle later by the first responders. She also seemed to be averse to loud noises and sounds inside of the courtroom. For instance, when there are sidebars, there's a white noise that's played across the speaker system just to make sure that no one can hear what's happening. This juror puts both of her hands over her ears and closes her eyes because she doesn't want to hear that noise, and she did it every time. someone else who's sitting in that courtroom, Katie Bryant, and she's gasping at times when she sees the video of her son. I could see her sitting with someone, holding hands with them, and even in her own hands, holding some items, a green bracelet and an orange fuzzy ball, it seemed, trying to distract herself from those more disturbing images today coming out in evidence. Kim Potter, I noticed, not really looking at the monitor when those images were shown from her fellow officers who responded to the scene. Her attorneys said that the repeated showing of this amounted to cumulative evidence, and they were successful in getting some of that evidence not shown to this jury. We'll be looking ahead to what happens for day 3 as far as the videos in this case. Back to you.
All right, big thanks to Julia Renee. Let's bring in our think tank still with us, Renee Hill, Carmen Rowe, Molly Parmer. This is a prosecution that is doing an extremely thorough job. I first looked at this case and I said, you know, a couple days, few days, that's all it should really take. Show them the video, have, you know, witnesses like Elena, the girlfriend, testify, the officers that were there, use of force expert, I guess, for the taser, and then we're done. But this trial is supposed to take 2 to 4 weeks is the estimation, and I think that's based really on the way prosecutors are trying it. Carmen Rowe, your thoughts about the way prosecutors are doing this, and they're playing to a lot of emotion. During the opening statement, there were a lot of mentions about the hollow point bullet that was used, and here talking about the aftermath of the shooting and then the crash. Your thoughts about painting this much larger picture in this manslaughter case?
You know, Vinny, Minneapolis and their police department, I mean, what is going on over there, right? Like this reminds me of
this is Brooklyn Center. This is Brooklyn Center,
right.
Different police department, but same area, same
down
county.
the street. Down the street. And so they're trying this case. I mention that because I think they're trying it just like George Floyd. They were methodical. They brought in all the emotions on the front end. That's what we're seeing this time. And they went through every single area of the law enforcement use of force and brought in all the experts. I mean, you generally don't see, as you pointed out, that kind of thoroughness in a case like this, but they're pulling out all the stops. And I think they need to, because this is a complicated case in a complicated area of the law that law professors, attorneys across the country are debating all across the country, trying to figure out what was the right thing to do, what justified the use of force. And Vinny, I would also point out that most use of force experts would tell you that using a taser to somebody's chest area is deadly force. So it just gets more complicated the more we know about it.
Let's take a listen. There was a motion made today by the defense based upon this type of evidence and testimony related to the aftermath of the shooting. Take a listen.
The issue in our case here is the thought process of Kimberly Potter at the moment that she yelled taser, 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 and pulled the trigger of her gun. We have spent the day, rather, on an accident that was caused by Dante Wright's excessive speed. We've heard from the elderly couple, the wife and the daughter, in very sympathetic testimony. And then we've spent an unending, it seems, amount of time on that aspect of the case without any time addressed to the gravamen of why we're here. There is a body of evidence that holds that where the state spends an inordinate amount of time presenting prejudicial evidence that has little relevance to the elements of the particular offense, that the defendant is prejudiced. As I sat with Mr. Gray and watched this is the great advantage of being a second chair, in a sense. You know, I didn't see any evidence directed towards the proof of guilt today, but rather evidence of sordid pictures and prejudicial impact that had little relevance. To the extent this is a Blakely issue, it still doesn't override, in terms of time and attention, what really matters in the case, which is whether the state can prove the elements of the offense. Therefore, I move for a mistrial.
Molly Parmer, your thoughts about the defense reaction to this type of evidence, talking about everything that happened afterwards, after the shooting, that doesn't necessarily directly impact the elements of the alleged crime here.
Right. So this is a good defense lawyer doing what a good defense lawyer does, and that's making a record about evidentiary issues that he can then litigate on appeal if she's found guilty. What he's basically saying, and what is true under the law and criminal trial practice, is that even if a piece of evidence is relevant, it has to be more probative than prejudicial. You can't just bring in all this prejudicial evidence that colors the jury when really you're supposed to just bring in evidence that goes to the heart of the elements of the charged offenses. And what he's referencing here with the Blakely issue is the state's response was that, look, Judge, we are asking for an aggravated sentence, an enhanced sentence based on aggravating factors, and that's what we're presenting to the jury here. But I think ultimately what this defense lawyer is doing is making a really good record, and that's what he should be doing. But I think in this case, you know, it has been, as you said, a very thorough, methodical presentation of evidence, and it has been incredibly emotional. And we haven't really gotten to the heart of, you know, what the jury is going to decide. But as we know, the mistrial was not granted, but that doesn't mean that this can't come up again on appeal should she lose.
Renée Hill, is this a sign of strength or weakness for the prosecution case, putting in all of this type of evidence?
I certainly don't think it's a sign of weakness in this case. I believe that they are trying this case the way they see fit. They want to get emotions into this case, certainly. They want to bring the jury in that way, but they also have the evidence to put forth before this jury as to why they should find the defendant guilty. And just going back to the last question that was posed, I agree with Molly, and I want to say I'm just a little curious about why the defense attorney did not address that issue in prior to the trial, why it wasn't brought up then to have that issue resolved before it went before the jury, because he had to know that they were going to put that evidence forth. And that it would be extremely emotional for these jurors to hear. And that's pulling at the heartstrings. This prosecution came out the gate with very, very compelling, heart-wrenching, just gut-wrenching testimony that is going to be very, very difficult for the defense to get these jurors away from. That is going to remain in their minds no matter what.
So, Carmen, what does this case turn on? Like, to me, there's no real factual dispute. The closest we get to a factual dispute is, was Daunte Wright attempting to flee at the time that Kim Potter thought she was using the taser and was actually shooting him with the gun? Was he in the act of fleeing, or did Officer Johnson have control of the vehicle and they were just trying to get him under control so he didn't drive away with a police officer, hanging halfway in the car through the door on the passenger side? So that's the only real dispute of fact here. So what's this case really, really about?
You know, Vinny, this is what is so interesting from a legal perspective. I think this case turns on whether or not the officer was justified in using deadly force at the time that it was used. I mean, the defense is putting this narrative out there that, to me, is something like a mistake of fact. She was justified in using the taser and she was mistaken in pulling the gun. But at the end of the day, there's no such thing as accidents under the law. There's only justification for the use of force. So this jury is going to have to determine whether this officer was justified in the use of the amount of force that was used at the time that it was used, and whether that was reasonable under the circumstances. And everything else, I think, is just a distraction. But it's fascinating because when this case first came out on CourtTV, they were quick to say this was all an accident. And I thought, there's no such thing as that. And so the law is not going to apply accident to this situation. It's going to be whether she was justified.
All right. Think tank staying with us. We got a lot more to get to. Still ahead.
On the docket tonight in Orange County, Florida, the Suitcase murder trial. Sarah Boone accused of locking her boyfriend in a suitcase and taunting him while he died. We have a preview. Plus, many thought it would be a quick verdict in the Jussie Smollett case, but it didn't turn out that way. Tonight's 13th juror question: what do you think of the jury in the Smollett case? Go to our Facebook pages and tell us what you think.
On the docket tonight, the Suitcase murder trial out of Orange County, Florida. It's the story of Sarah Boone.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
It's Monday, February 24th. There's a crisis at the home of Sarah Boone, prompting her to call 911.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send a line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
The fire department takes over the call, and for the next few minutes, officials are obtaining critical details about what happened.
No, tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in a suitcase and we were playing. And like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep, and I woke up, and he was dead in the suitcase, so I don't know what happened.
Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase. I tried giving him CPR.
Fire and rescue instruct Boone on how to give chest compressions.
Just keep on pumping. That's all you need to do for me. Keep on pumping his chest for me. I don't need you to stop and talk or anything. I just want you to count out loud for me, okay?
31, 32. Please hurry.
Okay, ma'am, they're getting there as fast as they can, okay?
He's stiff and he's purple.
EMS arrived within minutes and advised Boone that her boyfriend, Jorge Torres, had been down too long and there was nothing more they could do. Boone explained she and Torres were drinking the night before and thought it would be funny if he got inside of a suitcase for a game of hide and seek. The next day, deputies returned and arrested Boone and charged her with second-degree murder in Torres' death. Boone's story about a childhood game gone awry unraveled when investigators say they found video on her cell phone showing Boone taunting and laughing at Torres while he was struggling to get out of the suitcase. Police say he was yelling he couldn't breathe and asking Boone for help. According to police, Boone was captured on video saying, "That's what I feel like when you cheat on me." When confronted with the video, officers say she told them she didn't remember those moments. But to investigators, those moments add up to motive for second-degree murder.
All right, folks, take a look. March 29th, pretrial conference, trial date April 11th, 2022. Florida versus Sarah Boone, the Suitcase murder trial. When we come back, it's another verdict tonight. I got the red tie on. We've got another verdict. The Jussie Smollett case, the jury came back. Your reaction to that verdict when we return.
Does your friend need an ambulance?
I just think he's startled. What's really weird, ma'am, just because I'm scared, I don't know what it is. They put a noose around his neck. You know, they didn't do anything with it, put it around his neck. That's really up to me. Sorry for saying it like that.
That was the 911 call that started it all, and it ended up in being charges against Jussie Smollett. He was found guilty today in a verdict out in Chicago of 5 of the 6 counts against him. Each count up to 3 years, but we'll see what actually happens here. So we posted the verdict and got your reaction on social media. We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day, coming from Carrie, who says, "Awesome. Hopefully the sentence is a decent amount of time. People like him are the reason people are so divided. He should be working to end the divide and not make it worse." Renée Hill, what's a good sentence for Jussie?
You know, this is a really hard one, Vinny, because the judge is going to look at him as this figure, right, that's out there. He's in the entertainment world, and they like to make examples of people like that. But they need to look at him as a regular person, a regular individual, and sentence him accordingly. If he were not in the public's eye, if he were not an entertainer, would he get a significant amount of jail time over charges like this, or would he get probation? I think probation would probably be suitable in this case, but whether he gets that is going to be a different story because of the stature that he has in the public eye.
So all of a sudden, it's no longer an advantage to be a celebrity in court. It used to be back in the old days, right? Ask Beretta. All right, Mike tonight. I hope they consider it a hate crime and make an example out of him. Carmen Rowe, what are your thoughts about what he was convicted of, what he went through? He took the stand and testified. Does that end up getting held against you at sentencing if you testify and the jury ends up not believing you?
Sure, absolutely. It's part of the deliberation process to decide what the right punishment is. But let me say this about that. As a criminal defense attorney who represents individuals who are sometimes falsely accused, it is infuriating to know that there are people out there who make these false allegations, who have other people arrested, who lie about what those people did, and there are no consequences. It's very unusual that you can get a prosecutor to actually pursue charges in situations like this, but I think it's everything because, again, this is a person who made a false allegation, who accused two other people who were arrested at the behest of him, his lies. So, I think that it's a situation where he undermines true victims out there. But most importantly, from my perspective, he really, really makes this process something that's much uglier than it needs to be by lying about and accusing somebody of something as serious as these allegations.
Robin tonight, I agree with the verdict, but this entire thing was a terrible waste of resources. Now, that can be read a lot of different ways, the waste of resources. What resources were wasted here, Molly?
Well, one of the most interesting things about this case to me, Vinny, was the fact that, don't forget, District Attorney Kim Foxx decided to dismiss this case, right? It only came back once they opened up an investigation and appointed Special Prosecutor Dan Webb. So, I don't really know what angle Robin is taking, but if anybody is really angry and upset about Jussie Smollett, what he did, how he took the stand, don't forget that we had a prosecutor that knew, the facts and the circumstances and said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss it. Now going forward with trial, does that require resources? Certainly. But by the time his case was dismissed the first time around, they had already spent so much money investigating this case, and it was already a waste of resources. So, I think some blame has to be given to Miss Kim Foxx when it comes to this one.
I'll agree with you there, for sure. Andre tonight. I said in the beginning, he should have paid the $100,000 and been done with this. Could have went on with his life, regained his career, and continued working by fighting the city. You have no win. Basically, the city got too much evidence. I'm just saying, says Andre. Are you surprised at all, Renee, that this wasn't resolved with some sort of guilty plea? The charges weren't serious. He has no record. And, the story was ridiculous. It was below zero. Yeah. It's 2 a.m. You're going to Subway, and there just happens to be two Trump-supporting, MAGA hat-wearing men walking around with a noose just looking for Jussie. And these MAGA hat-wearing people are fans of Empire.
I agree with you, Vinny, that this case should have been resolved. It certainly shouldn't have gone to trial. And if I recall correctly, I think there was, it was either the dismissal or there was an ACD, an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal.
It was just dismissed,
with
yeah.
Some community service or something. It was something very minor, and I don't believe it involved acknowledging any guilt. It should have been done. It should have been handled that way, in my opinion. I don't think it should have gone to trial. He put himself at risk, and now there was a conviction, and he's going to have to deal with the consequences of the sentence.
Stang, he'll get probation and some community service. He's not going anywhere. Carmen, how about a little restitution as well, right? Criminal courts, a judge can order restitution if someone's been harmed here, like the city.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's not common, not here in Texas anyway, but it's absolutely something that can be ordered, and it probably should be in this case. Again, I find this to be offensive. I know it's not a big deal, relatively speaking, but it's a big deal. And I think this guy is the kind of guy that would never have made a deal early on. I mean, my God, he lied about this whole thing. That is the craziest story, as you pointed out, that we've heard in a long time from a well-respected, talented actor. So, no, I think he gets what he deserves. I think he'd be lucky to get probation with a whole lot of restitution. Sounds pretty good to me.
And Molly, isn't the problem here not only, Chicago, there is so much crime to begin with, right? That other crimes, you need those resources to investigate those crimes, right? So he reports this fake crime. That's a problem. And then the other problem is when someone is actually the victim of a hate crime, people will look at their claims a little more skeptically.
Yeah, I mean, listen, yeah, Chicago, a lot of crime and a lot of corruption. I will say that. And you're right. I think my concern here is that this I agree with Carmen. Like, it is incredibly offensive to criminal defense lawyers. You know, I serve on the board of the Georgia Innocence Project. I hate the idea of somebody being falsely accused. And it concerns me that I think Jussie Smollett really valued being a victim, like, to some extreme level. And I'm concerned that maybe a lot of members of society these days are kind of into that. And from the criminal defense perspective, it is problematic when you create false victimhood simply because it's going to garner you more fame, more respect, more of a salary. I don't know, but we have to move away from that. You should only be a victim if you actually are one. And
Absolutely.
We shouldn't reward people for seeking that.
But I think we have a word for people like that. It starts with an M. Millennials? No, only kidding, millennials. Millennials are good. All right. Renee Hill, Carmen Rowe, Molly Parmer, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, your expertise. We'll see you again real soon. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what's happening with Scott Peterson. Not go away.
Breaking news in Columbia, Missouri. Judgment day for Lynn Lee Renick, accused of murdering her world-famous snake breeder husband, Ben, as the jury delivers their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Lynn Lee Renick, guilty of murder in the second degree.
In tonight's unsolved case file in Rose Township, Michigan, Allie